Christmas at my parents' house in Columbus always looked better in photos than it felt in person. The tree was too big for the living room. The lights blinked like they were having second thoughts. My mom insisted on hosting even after my dad's business folded, and they had to move into the house I bought earlier that year. Technically, it was my place. Practically, they treated it like theirs. I flew in on leave 3 days before Christmas. My duty station was Fort Cavazos at the time. I wore jeans and a sweater, not my uniform. I never traveled in uniform unless I had to. My mom hugged me like she was greeting a distant cousin, not her daughter, who had just wrapped up a 12-month rotation in Poland. Still in the army, she asked, like it might have changed on the flight. Last time I checked, my brother Jason was already at the table carving ham, like he owned stock in it. He had that look he gets when he's about to perform for an audience. My younger sister Megan was scrolling through her phone, half paying attention, half waiting for something dramatic to happen. In this family drama was the main course. Dinner started normal. Turkey ham, too many side dishes, and my dad explaining to my uncle why the economy was the real reason his construction company went under. Again. I listened. I've been in intelligence long enough to recognize patterns. Same speech, different year. Halfway through dessert, my dad tapped his fork against his glass. Not hard. Just enough to make everyone look up. He cleared his throat like he was about to give a toast. We need to make some changes in this family. That's never a good opening line. He leaned back in his chair, eyes on me. Starting next year, we're cutting off the useless ones. No more carrying dead weight. Jason smirked before the sentence was even done. My mom nodded like this had been workshopped in advance. And your first young lady. It wasn't loud. It wasn't shouted. That almost made it worse. Calm. Final. The room went quiet, except for the hum of the heater. I looked around the table. My aunt stared at her plate. Megan's eyebrows shot up, then she tried to hide a smile. Jason didn't bother hiding his. My dad kept going. You've been in the army almost a decade. No husband, no kids, no real plan to come home. You float around the world, and for what? A paycheck. There it was. The word he meant to use but didn't. Useless. My mom folded her napkin carefully. A real woman builds a family. She doesn't run off playing soldier. Playing soldier. I've led intelligence briefings for battalion commanders who didn't talk to me like that. Jason cut in. All that army stuff and you're still the least settled one here. Settled. That was rich coming from a man who'd lived in 4 apartments in 3 years, each one smaller than the last. I set my fork down. I didn't feel angry. I felt tired. There's a difference. Anger burns hot. Tired just sits there. For the record, my dad continued, we've decided we're not supporting bad choices anymore. No more handouts. No more safety nets. That part almost made me laugh. For the past 3 years, I'd wired money home more times than I could count. When COVID shut down his business, I sent part of my re-enlistment bonus. When Jason's second startup collapsed, I covered the balance on a business credit card so it wouldn't tank my parents' credit too. I never posted about it, never brought it up. That's not how I was raised. You help your family. You don't keep score. Apparently, they had been keeping score. I just wasn't on the winning side. So what exactly does cutting off mean, I asked. My dad shrugged. It means if you're not building something real, you're on your own. We're done pretending this military phase is a life. Phase. I'm a captain in the United States Army. I've commanded soldiers. I've signed evaluation reports that shape careers. But in this dining room, I was a phase. Jason leaned back in his chair. Maybe you can finally figure out what you want to do when you grow up. I'm 31. Megan chimed in. It's not personal, it's just reality. Reality. Here's some reality. I bought this house 8 months earlier using a VA loan. 0 down. Fixed rate. My name alone on the deed. I didn't tell them because my dad's pride was already hanging by a thread. When they needed a place after losing their old house, I offered this one. Said it was an investment property. Let them believe they were helping me by living here. Now I was apparently dead weight in my own investment. My mom pushed her plate aside. We're not trying to be cruel. We're trying to be honest. Honest would have been asking where the down payment came from. Honest would have been acknowledging who paid the property taxes. Instead, honesty showed up at Christmas dessert. I glanced at the framed photos on the wall. My commissioning ceremony. My first deployment patch. They'd hung them up when the neighbors came over. Good optics. Our daughter the officer. It sounded better than our daughter who won't give us grandkids. My dad folded his hands on the table. So starting now. No more financial support for you if you decide to leave the army and things don't work out. We won't bail you out. I blinked. Bail me out. That's right, he said. You've had your adventure. It's time to face consequences like the rest of us. Adventure. There are places I've been where the air smelled like diesel and dust, and you learn to tell the difference between outgoing and incoming fire by sound. But sure, adventure. Jason laughed under his breath. Guess the useless ones are finally on notice. Something about that word landing twice made it settle in the room like smoke. I stood up slowly, not dramatic, just deliberate. My chair scraped lightly against the hardwood floor I paid for refinishing. You're right about one thing I said. They looked relieved, like I was about to apologize for my entire career. We do need to make changes. My dad nodded, satisfied. Good. I'm glad you see that. I reached into my bag by the door and pulled out a manila folder. I'd brought it home because I needed to update some paperwork while I was on leave. The deed copy was inside. Not for this moment. Just coincidence. Or maybe instinct. I walked back to the table and set the folder down between the cranberry sauce and the pie. Since we're cutting off the useless ones, I said evenly, we should probably talk about who actually lives here. Jason frowned. What does that mean? It meant a lot of things. It meant mortgage statements in my name. It meant automatic withdrawals from my account every month. It meant property insurance under my policy. My mom looked confused. My dad looked irritated. This is my house, I said, legally. No one spoke. The heater kicked on again. The lights on the tree blinked. Somewhere outside, a car drove past with music too loud for the neighborhood. Jason scoffed. You're joking. I slid the copy of the deed out of the folder and placed it on the table face up. My name sat there in clear black ink. My dad didn't reach for it right away. He just stared like the paper might rearrange itself if he waited long enough. Megan leaned forward first. Is that real? Very. My mom's face shifted from confusion to something tighter. You never told us. You never asked. That silence felt different from the one earlier. This one wasn't about me being useless. It was about them realizing the ground under their feet wasn't as solid as they thought. Jason picked up the paper, scanning it. His smirk faded. My dad finally stood slower than before. Why would you do this without telling us? I met his eyes. Because sometimes it's easier to let people believe what they want. The room didn't explode. No one flipped the table. It was quieter than that. Controlled. Measured. My mom sat back down. So what are you saying? I looked at each of them in turn. The same people who 5 minutes earlier had decided my life was a mistake. I'm saying, I replied, if we're reviewing who's useful and who isn't, we should make sure we have all the facts. Jason let out a short laugh and dropped the deed back onto the table like it had offended him. This doesn't mean anything, he said. You bought it for Mom and Dad. I bought it, I replied. That part isn't up for debate. My dad finally grabbed the paper, reading slower than Jason had. His jaw tightened the further he got. You used a VA loan, he said, like that disqualified it somehow. Yes, that's government-backed. That's not the same as earning it. I almost smiled. You mean the benefit I earned by deploying twice? My mom shook her head. We're not arguing about paperwork. We're talking about respect. Respect. That word gets thrown around in families like it's currency. Usually it only flows one direction. My aunt cleared her throat softly. Maybe we should calm down. Jason ignored her. So what, you're going to kick us out now? Because your feelings got hurt? My feelings aren't hurt, I said. You made that clear. My dad set the deed down carefully. We moved here because you offered. You said it would help you. You said it was an investment. It is. He looked at me like I'd just betrayed him. You let us believe this was our home. It's a home. It's just not yours. That hit harder than anything else that night. Megan crossed her arms. This is unbelievable. You're seriously pulling rank on your own parents? I didn't raise my voice. Rank has nothing to do with it. Ownership does. Jason leaned forward. You think because you wear a uniform you're better than everyone? No, I said evenly. But I do think signing a mortgage matters. That shut him up for about 5 seconds. My dad straightened his shoulders. You're still our daughter. You don't get to hold this over us. I'm not holding anything over you. You brought up usefulness. I'm just clarifying the math. My mom looked at the photos on the wall. We put those up because we're proud of you. Are you? She hesitated. That's not fair, she said. Neither was tonight. The room felt smaller. Christmas music played softly from the kitchen speaker. Something about peace on earth. The timing was almost funny. Jason stood up and paced a few steps. You've always had this chip on your shoulder. Like you have something to prove. I watched him. Do I? Yes, he snapped. You act like you're the responsible one. Like we're all idiots. I didn't say that. You don't have to. My dad cut in. This is exactly what we're talking about. You come home twice a year and act like you're above everything. Above what I asked. Debt denial. He slammed his hand lightly on the table. Not enough to break anything. Just enough to feel dramatic. We're your parents, and I'm an adult. My mom looked at me differently then. Not angry. Calculating. So what's your plan? She asked. You going to send us a bill? No. Eviction notice. If it comes to that, I'll follow Ohio law. That landed. Jason laughed again, but it sounded forced. You wouldn't. Try me. Silence. For the first time that night, they didn't have a rehearsed line ready. My dad took a slow breath. You don't understand what it's like to lose everything. I held his gaze. I understand what it's like to build something from nothing. He didn't respond. Megan shifted in her seat. This is Christmas. I'm aware. You're ruining it. I didn't tap the glass. That one hung in the air. My mom folded her hands tightly. We were trying to help you. By calling me useless. By pushing you to grow up. I almost laughed. I manage intelligence operations for a living. That's a job, my dad said. It's not a life. What qualifies as a life? He didn't answer. Jason picked up his phone, scrolling like he needed backup from the internet. You could have told us about the house. You could have asked. My mom's voice softened. Why didn't you? Because I knew this would happen. Because I knew the second I had leverage, it would turn into a power struggle. Because I didn't want to humiliate my father. Instead, I said it didn't seem necessary. My dad shook his head. This changes things. Yes. For you too, he added. I nodded. I know. The heater shut off. The room felt colder without it. Jason tossed the deed back toward me. So what now? You going to set rules? I already have rules, I said. They're called property rights. Megan rolled her eyes. You sound like a lawyer. I read contracts before I signed them. My mom stared at the folder. Is there anything else in there we should know about? I paused for a second. Just paperwork, not a lie. Not the full picture either. My dad rubbed his forehead. You blindsided us. That's interesting, I replied. I thought tonight was about honesty. He looked at me sharply. You think this makes you powerful, he said. No, I said calmly. It makes me responsible. Jason stopped pacing. You're serious about this? Yes. My mom looked at my dad. Something unspoken passed between them. Finally, she asked, Are you asking us to leave? I didn't answer right away. I looked around the room. The tree. The stockings. The framed photos. The same house I signed for while sitting in a folding chair at a closing office near base. No one from my family had been there that day. I'm saying, I said slowly, if we're redefining who belongs and who doesn't, we should be clear about whose name is on what. My dad pulled out a chair and sat back down heavily. He wasn't used to not controlling the room. Jason muttered, This is insane. Maybe. Or maybe it was the first honest conversation we'd had in years. My mom's eyes narrowed slightly. You're not telling us everything. That wasn't a question. She'd always been good at reading between lines. I held her gaze. What do you think I'm not telling you? I asked. No one answered. But the shift had already happened. The label useless wasn't sticking the way they'd planned. And for the first time that night, I could see them recalculating. I picked up the deed and slid it back into the folder, keeping my voice steady. You think I've been floating around for fun, I said. Let me walk you through what that actually looks like. Jason crossed his arms. Here we go. I commissioned at 22, I continued. Basic officer leader course right after college. Fort Huachuca. 6 months of learning how not to get people killed because I missed something in a report. My dad stared at me like this was a sales pitch. First deployment was Afghanistan. Kandahar. I was 24. My job was tracking patterns, roadside bomb supply routes, local contacts. Not glamorous, not Instagram material. Megan shifted uncomfortably. She'd never asked what I actually did over there. There was a convoy that hit an IED 3 weeks into that rotation, I said. 2 injuries. 1 bad. My team had flagged that stretch of road as higher risk, but resources were thin. That kind of thing stays with you. The room was quiet. Even Jason wasn't smirking. That's what your phase looked like. My dad folded his arms. Plenty of people serve. That doesn't make you special. I don't think I'm special, I said. I think I'm accountable. My mom leaned forward slightly. Accountable to who? To the soldiers under me. To the families who expect them to come home. Jason shook his head. You act like you're carrying the world. I carry my piece of it. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Second deployment was Poland, I went on. Different mission. NATO rotation. Intelligence coordination. Long hours. Cold weather. Constant briefings. You know what I did on my birthday that year? No one answered. I reviewed satellite imagery for 12 hours straight. Megan let out a small breath. That sounds intense. It's work, I said. Just like any other job. Except if I screw up, it's not a missed email. It's people. My dad rubbed his chin. And you think that excuses you from building a life? That is a life. He shook his head. No husband, no roots. I own this house, I replied. That's a root. Jason laughed under his breath. You barely live here, because I'm stationed somewhere else. That's the problem. I studied him for a moment. You tried ROTC. His jaw tightened. I changed my mind. You quit. He stood up halfway, then sat back down. It wasn't for me. That's fine, I said. It was for me. My mom cut in quickly. We're not comparing you two, but we always were. Jason was the golden son. I was the daughter who didn't fit the script. You think we don't appreciate your service, my dad said, defensive now. We put your pictures up. We tell people. I know, I said. You like the story, not the reality. What's that supposed to mean? It means it's easier to say your daughter's an officer than to accept she won't move back to Ohio and give you grandchildren. Silence. That one landed. My mom's lips pressed together. It's not wrong to want that. It's not wrong to not want it either. Jason looked at the tree. You always make everything about independence. Like we're trying to control you. You called me useless. My dad exhaled heavily. We were making a point, and I'm responding to it. I leaned back slightly, not retreating, just grounding myself. When Dad's business went under in 2020, I wired $15,000 from my re-enlistment bonus, I said. No questions asked. My dad's eyes flicked up. When Jason's second startup collapsed, I paid off the last $8,000 on his business card, so the bank wouldn't come after you. Jason's face flushed. You offered? Yes, I did. Megan blinked. You never told me that. I didn't need to. My mom looked genuinely surprised. We thought that was Jason's investor covering it. Jason avoided her eyes. That's what I was told, my dad said slowly. I shrugged. I didn't send it with a press release. The room shifted again. Not dramatic, just subtle. You've helped, my mom admitted quietly. I have. But that doesn't change the fact that you're drifting, my dad insisted. I bought a house, I said. I have a career path. I'm up for major next year. Jason snorted. Military promotions aren't real promotions. I turned to him. They are when you're responsible for more people. He opened his mouth, then closed it. My dad leaned forward. Let me ask you something. If you left the Army tomorrow, what would you do? Probably defense contracting. Or federal intelligence work. I have options. That's not what I meant. I know. He looked frustrated. You're always 3 steps ahead, like this is a strategy game. It's not a game, I said. It's planning. My mom's voice softened again. We just don't want you alone. I'm not alone. You don't have anyone. That's not true. They didn't know about most of my friends. About Dana, my platoon sergeant, who'd become more family than family. About the women in my unit who'd shown up with casseroles when one of us had a rough week. They didn't know because they never asked. Jason leaned forward again. You're defensive because you know we're right. No, I said calmly. I'm defensive because you called me useless in my own house. That word again. My dad rubbed his temples. Maybe that was harsh. Maybe. He didn't answer. Megan spoke up quietly. I don't think you're useless. I looked at her. That was the first time she'd said anything real all night. Thank you, I said. Jason scoffed. Don't start. My mom looked between all of us. This isn't how Christmas is supposed to go. No, I agreed. It's not. My dad leaned back in his chair, studying me in a way he hadn't before. Not dismissive, not proud. Just trying to figure me out. You really believe you've built something solid, he said. Yes. And you think we're wrong about you. I think you don't know me. That hung there. Not angry, not loud. Just true. And for the first time that night, my dad didn't immediately push back. Megan stared at the folder still sitting between us. Is that really everything she asked? Her tone was casual, but her eyes weren't. I watched her for a second. Why? She hesitated. Jason shot her a quick look. It wasn't subtle. Nothing she said too fast. Just asking. That right there was familiar. I've spent years reading body language in briefing rooms. The quick glance. The throat tighten. The microsecond delay before answering. It means someone knows something. What aren't I aware of? I asked. Jason rolled his eyes. This is ridiculous. Then it should be easy to answer. My mom shifted in her chair. Emily, this doesn't need to turn into a full investigation. It already is, I replied. My dad looked irritated. You're not on duty. I don't clock out of common sense. Jason stood up again, pacing 2 steps and back. You're blowing this up. Am I? Megan exhaled sharply. Can we just drop it? That confirmed it. Drop what I asked. No one answered. I leaned back slightly. Grandma told me something before she passed. That got my mom's attention immediately. She said she'd set aside money for Jason and me. Equal. For when we were older. Jason froze mid-step. My dad's jaw tightened. Your grandmother said a lot of things. She was specific. It wasn't finalized, he said quickly. That's not what the estate documents say. The silence that followed was heavy and immediate. My mom looked at my dad. Richard. He didn't respond. Jason finally muttered, It's not what you think. That's usually how these conversations go, I said calmly. My dad straightened up. Your grandmother set up a trust. Yes, years ago. For both of you. Amount, he hesitated. That's private. It was meant for me, Jason snapped. It was meant for both of us. Exactly. Megan's eyes were wide now. I didn't know details. Sure you didn't, Jason muttered. I kept my voice even. How much? My dad sighed. 240,000 total. Split evenly. 120,000 each. That was distributed when we turned 25, I asked. It was managed, he said carefully. Managed how? Jason stepped in. Invested. In what? He didn't answer. I looked at my dad. You were trustee. Yes. So you had fiduciary responsibility to both beneficiaries. He didn't like that word. Don't start throwing legal terms around, he said. They're relevant. My mom's voice softened. We used part of it to help Jason. Used, I repeated. Jason bristled. It was a loan. From my half, it was all one account. That's not how trusts work. My dad snapped, Don't lecture me. I'm not lecturing. I'm asking. He stood up abruptly. You didn't need the money. That was honest. And worse than anything else. I let that sit for a second. So you decided that for me. You were in the army, he said. Steady income. Benefits. Housing. Jason was trying to build something. By burning through startup capital, Jason's face flushed. At least I was trying something. So was I. That's different. How? He didn't answer. My mom looked uneasy now. It was supposed to be temporary. The investment was going to return it. Did it? Silence. That's what I thought. My dad ran a hand through his hair. The market shifted. The company didn't scale. How much is left? I asked. He didn't respond. How much? I repeated slower. Jason muttered. Not much. Define not much. Under 20. 20,000. He nodded slightly. So $100,000 from my share is gone. It wasn't yours alone, my dad shot back. It was legally half mine. My heart wasn't racing. My voice wasn't shaking. That almost scared me more. The calm. When were you planning to tell me? I asked. My mom spoke softly. We thought you'd understand. Understand what? That you didn't need it. There it was again. Need. Jason leaned forward. You had deployments, bonuses. You bought a house. With a loan. You're fine. I looked at him carefully. I lived in a studio off base for 2 years because I was saving. I skipped vacations. I paid your debt. And you decided I didn't need what Grandma left me. He looked away. My dad's voice dropped. It wasn't personal. That's the problem. It should have been. Megan finally spoke up. Was it legal? The question hung there. My dad answered slowly. As trustee, I had discretion to invest. In yourself, I asked. In family. That's not a category in fiduciary law. He glared at me. Are you threatening to sue your own parents? I'm asking for transparency. Jason scoffed. You're overreacting. I shook my head. No, I'm calculating. The heater kicked on again, filling the silence with a low hum. My mom reached across the table. Emily, we were trying to keep everything afloat. After the business collapsed after the house. So you used my inheritance. We used available resources. Without my consent. My dad's shoulders stiffened. You would have said no? Yes. That's exactly why we didn't ask. No one spoke for several seconds. Jason tried one more angle. It was an investment in family. It was a gamble with my share. You act like we stole from you. I met his eyes. Did you replace it? He didn't answer. Megan looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. So what happens now? That was the first practical question anyone had asked. I folded my hands on the table. Now, I said evenly, I get a full accounting of that trust. Every transaction. My dad's voice hardened. You're not dragging lawyers into this. That depends on what I find. Jason laughed nervously. You wouldn't go that far. I didn't respond. My mom looked scared now. Not angry, not defensive. Scared. You're serious, she said quietly. Yes. The room felt different than it had an hour earlier. The insult about being useless seemed almost small compared to this. My dad sat back down slowly. You're choosing money over family. I held his gaze. You already did. My dad's face hardened, but the confidence he had earlier was gone. You're blowing this out of proportion, he said. Families move money around all the time. Not from an irrevocable trust without disclosure, I replied. Jason threw his hands up. There you go again with the legal talk. It's not legal talk. It's basic responsibility. My mom looked between us like she was watching a car accident in slow motion. Emily, we were trying to protect you from stress. By removing $100,000 from my future, it wasn't supposed to disappear, my dad snapped. The company was projected to double. Projected by who? Jason shifted uncomfortably. We had forecasts. You had hope, I corrected. He didn't argue. I stood up not to dominate the room, just because sitting felt too passive. I walked to the kitchen counter and grabbed a glass of water. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. I'd briefed battalion commanders on worse information than this. At least in those rooms, people respected process. When I came back, I didn't sit down. You made a decision for me, I said, without telling me. Then tonight you decided I was useless. That's not connected, my mom insisted. It is to me. My dad leaned forward. You're acting like we robbed you. I looked directly at him. If someone accesses funds assigned to me without permission and doesn't return them, what would you call that? Jason cut in fast. It was temporary. How long has it been? No answer. How long? I repeated. My dad finally said it. 4 years. 4 years. 4 years of statements I never saw. 4 years of silence. 4 years of letting me believe the trust was being managed conservatively like Grandma intended. You watched me send money home, I said evenly. You watched me transfer $15,000 in 2020. That was different, my mom whispered. How? You offered. Because I thought we were operating in good faith. Jason scoffed. So now you're the victim. I'm the beneficiary, I said. There's a difference. My dad's voice lowered. You're going to take this to court, aren't you? If the accounting doesn't make sense, you would drag your own father through a lawsuit. I would ask a judge to review fiduciary conduct. That's the same thing. It's not. Megan looked pale. This is insane. It's Christmas. It was Christmas when you called me useless, I reminded her. My mom tried a different angle. We've supported you emotionally for years. I almost laughed. Emotionally, we encouraged you. You told me the army was a phase. That was concern. It didn't feel like concern. Jason paced again. You think you're morally superior because you wear a uniform. I think I signed up to serve something bigger than myself. And we didn't, he shot back. You signed up for seed funding and burned it. That landed harder than I expected. He stepped closer to me. You don't get to judge me. I'm not judging. I'm evaluating. My dad stood up too. Enough. The room tightened instantly. Old dynamics trying to snap back into place. Father as authority. Children falling in line. I didn't move. You will not threaten this family, he said. I'm not threatening, I replied calmly. I'm setting conditions. What conditions? Full disclosure, written accounting, timeline of distributions, investment documentation. Jason stared at me like I'd switched languages. You already know the numbers, he said. I know what you've admitted to. My mom's eyes filled slightly, but no tears fell. You're tearing us apart. No, I said quietly. This was already fractured. My dad exhaled sharply. What do you want? That question changed the tone. Not defensive, not mocking, direct. I want transparency, I said. And repayment. Jason barked a laugh. Repayment with what? That's your problem. You're unbelievable. I'm practical. My dad rubbed his forehead again. You think courts move fast? You think this won't follow you background checks? Security clearance reviews. That one was calculated. I held his gaze. I already thought about that. And filing a civil claim for fiduciary breach doesn't jeopardize my clearance. Financial instability might. He didn't respond. Jason muttered. You came prepared. No, I said. I came for dinner. That was true. I hadn't expected this, but I also hadn't spent 9 years in the army reacting emotionally to new information. My mom tried once more. What if we work this out privately? I'm open to that. Relief flickered across her face. With documentation, I added. Jason shook his head. You don't trust us. Should I? No one answered. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. Midnight was close. My dad looked older than he had an hour ago. You're really willing to put money over blood, he said. I stepped closer to the table. You put control over fairness, I replied. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Megan whispered. What happens if we can't pay it back? I looked at her. That depends on how honest you are from this point forward. Jason scoffed again, but weaker this time. So this is revenge. I considered that. No, I said finally. This is accountability. My dad sank back into his chair. For the first time all night, he didn't try to reclaim authority. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't dismiss me. He just looked at the folder on the table like it had rewritten something he thought was permanent. And I realized something in that moment. They weren't shocked that I owned the house. They were shocked that I wasn't backing down. I pulled my phone out and opened the Notes app where I'd already typed a few questions. Not because I expected this exact conversation, but because I've learned something in the Army. If a situation smells off, document it. My dad watched me carefully. What are you doing? Writing down what you just admitted. Jason let out a dry laugh. You're unbelievable. No, I said without looking up. I'm consistent. I read from the screen. Total trust value $240,000. My share $120. Funds transferred without written consent approximately 4 years ago. Current remaining balance under $20,000. That accurate. No one corrected me. My mom's voice was softer now. Emily put the phone away. I will. After this. Jason shook his head. You're acting like we're criminals. I'm acting like this is serious. My dad leaned forward again. You don't get to interrogate us in our own... He stopped himself mid-sentence. I raised an eyebrow slightly. Finish that. He didn't. The shift in power wasn't loud. It was subtle, but it was there. I'm not trying to humiliate you, I said. If I wanted to do that, I'd have handled this differently. How Jason snapped. By not having this conversation privately. That shut him up. My mom swallowed. What exactly are you planning? First, I want a formal accounting from the trustee. That's you, I said, looking at my dad. Every transaction, every distribution, every investment summary. You think I kept detailed spreadsheets, he shot back. I think you had a fiduciary obligation to. He stared at me for a long moment. I'll request it in writing, I continued. Certified mail. That way it's official and documented. Jason threw his hands up again. You're really doing this? Yes. You can't just sue family. I can if they mishandled funds. My mom tried again. This will destroy us. I looked at her calmly. You already decided I wasn't part of us. Silence. My dad's voice dropped lower. If you file something, it becomes public record. Yes. People will see it. Yes. You're willing to drag our name through that. I'm willing to protect my rights. Jason scoffed. Over money. Over principle. My dad leaned back, studying me differently now. Not as a child. Not as a disappointment. As an opponent. You've changed, he said. I've grown up. My mom rubbed her temples. There has to be another way. There is, I said. Repayment agreement. Structured. With interest. Jason laughed, but it didn't sound confident. Interest, yes. You're charging your own family interest. I lost 4 years of access to those funds. My dad exhaled slowly. You've already calculated that too, haven't you? 5% simple annual interest would be reasonable, I said evenly. I'm not trying to bankrupt anyone. Jason muttered something under his breath about cold-hearted. I ignored it. I'll give you 30 days to provide the accounting, I continued. After that, I consult a civil attorney. My dad's jaw tightened. You've already spoken to one. I've spoken to enough people to understand the basics. That wasn't entirely a lie. I hadn't hired anyone yet, but I'd asked general questions during a base legal briefing months earlier about fiduciary disputes. Not about this specifically. Just curiosity at the time. Now it mattered. Megan looked between all of us. So what happens to the house? That brought the conversation back to immediate reality. You'll receive written notice, I said. In compliance with Ohio law. 60 days. My mom's face drained of color. You're evicting us. I'm enforcing property rights. This is unbelievable, Jason said. No, I replied. This is overdue. My dad's voice turned sharp. You think you can just remove us like we're tenants? That's exactly what you are. He stood up again, but slower this time. Less explosive. More resigned. I raised you, he said quietly. Yes. I paid for your school. Yes. And this is how you repay me. I repaid you in 2020, and 2021, and 2022. He didn't deny it. My mom looked at me with something close to pleading. We made mistakes. I'm open to fixing them. Jason shook his head. You don't care about this family. If I didn't care, I wouldn't be offering options. My dad crossed his arms. What if we refuse? I met his eyes directly. Then I file. He held my gaze, trying to see if I would flinch. I didn't. After a long pause, he sat back down again. You really believe you're in the right, he said. Yes. You're willing to let this go to court, if necessary. Jason ran a hand through his hair. You're choosing the army over us. That's not what this is. It always is. No, I said calmly. This is about boundaries. The word felt heavier than the others. Boundaries. Something we'd never had in this house. My mom looked around the dining room slowly. The decorations, the plates, the half-eaten pie. This is supposed to be a home, she whispered. It is, I said. She looked at me carefully. Not anymore. I didn't respond. Because the truth was, it hadn't felt like one in a long time. My dad finally spoke again, quieter now. If we agree to provide the accounting and work toward repayment, will you hold off on legal action? Yes. Jason stared at me like I'd just rewritten the family constitution. You're serious, he said again. Yes. The clock ticked past midnight. Christmas was technically over. No one reached for dessert. No one turned the music back up. And for the first time in years, the unspoken rules in this house had changed. The house was quiet the next morning, but not peaceful. I woke up before anyone else, which isn't unusual. Army schedule sticks. I made coffee in the kitchen that technically belonged to me and watched the backyard through the window. Frost covered the grass. The inflatable snowman had tipped over overnight. Jason came in first. No good morning. Just opened the fridge and stood there like it had personally offended him. You really going through with this? He asked without looking at me. Yes. You're going to tear the family apart over a failed investment. I'm going to address a breach of trust. He shut the fridge a little harder than necessary. You've always needed control. That's called planning. He leaned against the counter. You could have just talked to us. I am talking to you. You know what I mean. I took a sip of coffee. You mean ignore it? He didn't respond. My mom came in next, hair still slightly messy, robe tied tight. She looked older than she had the night before. We need to figure this out quietly, she said. I agree. No lawyers. That depends, she sighed. You don't have to make everything formal. Yes, I do. My dad walked in last. No greeting. No small talk. He sat at the table and stared at nothing for a minute. I'll pull the trust statements, he said finally. That's a start. Jason scoffed. You're really doing this like a business transaction. That's what it became. My dad looked at me. You're not wrong about the paperwork. I should have provided updates. Should have. But I didn't steal from you. You reallocated funds without consent. He flinched slightly at the wording. We were under pressure, he said. So was I replied. He nodded once. Not agreement, just acknowledgement. The rest of the day moved awkwardly. No one mentioned Christmas dinner. We didn't sit around the tree. There was no second round of leftovers together. Everyone moved around each other carefully, like furniture had shifted in the night, and no one wanted to bump into it. By afternoon, I had emailed myself copies of the county property records just in case. I also drafted a certified letter template on my laptop. Not to send yet. Just ready. Jason noticed. You don't waste time, he muttered. I don't. Must be nice to always be prepared. It's exhausting. He studied me for a second. You think I wanted it to turn out like this? I think you didn't think it would. He looked away. That night my mom knocked on my bedroom door. The same bedroom I grew up in now, repainted and staged like a guest room. She stepped inside slowly. Your father didn't mean everything he said. I know. He worries about you. Then he should talk to me like an adult. She sat on the edge of the bed. You've always been strong. That's not an insult. No, she said softly. It's not. She hesitated before continuing. We didn't think you'd care about the trust money. That was the mistake. You've always made your own way. That doesn't make what was mine optional. She looked down at her hands. Jason was struggling. So was I. She didn't argue that. You never told us you were, she said. You never asked. The room went quiet. I don't want this to end with court dates, she said. Then it won't. She looked up at me carefully. You're not doing this out of spite. No. Then why does it feel like revenge? Because you're used to me absorbing things. She didn't deny it. After she left, I lay awake for a while. Not angry, just alert. In the Army, when something shifts in your environment, you don't relax until you understand the new baseline. The next week moved fast. I returned to base. Duty resumed. Morning briefings, training schedules, evaluation reports. Real life didn't pause because my family imploded over dessert. One afternoon, I stepped into the legal assistant's office on post during lunch. Not to file anything, to ask about procedure. The captain there didn't ask for personal details. Just outlined the basics, trustee accounting requirements, civil claims, mediation options. Clean, professional, no drama. I left with a clearer head. That night, my dad emailed a PDF attachment. Trust statements spanning 5 years. Transactions highlighted. Investment transfers labeled short-term allocation. I reviewed them carefully. The money trail was obvious. Large transfers to a business account connected to Jason's LLC. Minimal documentation. No formal loan agreement. No repayment schedule. It wasn't criminal in appearance, but it wasn't clean either. I replied with a short email requesting full documentation of the investment terms and any written authorization. Jason called within minutes. You're dissecting this like a prosecutor, he said. I'm reading numbers. You don't trust us. I'm verifying. He exhaled sharply. You're serious about charging interest? Yes. You're cold. No, I'm done being convenient. There was a long pause. You really think you're better than us now? He said. I think I stopped playing small. He hung up. Over the next few days, tension turned into logistics. My dad sent more documents. Some incomplete, some vague. I sent follow-up questions. My mom stopped using words like family first and started asking about timelines. Megan texted me privately once. I didn't know about the trust, I swear. I believe you, I replied. For the first time in years, conversations in this family were happening in writing. Clear, time-stamped, documented. And something else was happening too. They were no longer speaking to me like I was dependent. They were speaking to me like I had leverage. And that changed everything. The first check arrived 3 weeks later. No note. No apology. Just a cashier's check for $15,000 mailed certified. My dad's handwriting on the envelope. Clean, careful, controlled. I didn't feel victorious opening it. I felt steady. An email followed the same day. Short, direct. He proposed a structured repayment plan over 18 months. Principal plus 5% simple interest just like I had outlined. Monthly installments. Documented. Signed. Jason wasn't copied on the email. That told me everything I needed to know. I reviewed the proposal during lunch in my office. Door closed. No drama. Just numbers and timelines. It was reasonable. I replied with minor adjustments to the payment schedule and requested notarized signatures on the agreement. No threats, no emotion. By the end of the week, the signed document arrived. Clean, formal, binding. The eviction notice went out the following Monday. Not aggressive, not retaliatory. 60 days. Standard language. Compliant with Ohio law. My mom called within an hour. You're really asking us to leave? Yes. Even with the repayment plan? Yes. Her voice wasn't angry this time, just tired. We don't have anywhere lined up. You have 60 days. That's not much time. It's the legal requirement. Silence stretched between us. You're serious about building a life without us, she said quietly. I'm serious about building one that isn't built on guilt. She didn't argue. Jason called later that night. You could have let us stay. I could have. You're making a point. Yes. He let out a slow breath. Dad's pride is shot. That's not my responsibility. He's your father. He was my trustee. That ended that. Back at base, life didn't change much on the surface. Morning PT briefings, training rotations. But internally, something had shifted. I stopped checking my phone with that low-level anxiety I didn't even realize I carried. The kind that comes from expecting another crisis text. Another emergency. Another we need help. For years, I had been the quiet backup plan. Now I wasn't. One afternoon, Sergeant First Class Morales stopped by my office. You look lighter, she said. New haircut, I joked. Different posture. I leaned back in my chair. Just handled some family business. She raised an eyebrow. Messy. Precise. She nodded approvingly. Boundaries. Finally, she smiled. Good. You don't owe anyone your uniform. That line stayed with me. A month later, my dad sent the second payment on time. No delay. No argument. The trust account balance report showed steady repayment progress. Jason didn't call anymore. Megan texted occasionally. Neutral topics, safe subjects. My mom kept conversations practical, forwarding rental listings, asking about paperwork details. The dynamic had shifted. No more lectures about my life choices. No more comments about being unmarried. No more phase jokes. They were careful now. Not warm, not close, just careful. The 60-day mark approached quietly. I took leave again and flew back to Ohio to oversee the move-out inspection myself. The house looked different without the decorations. Boxes lined the hallway. Furniture partially wrapped. My dad met me at the door. He didn't hug me. He handed me a set of keys. We found a rental 2 blocks over, he said. I know. He nodded once. The payments will continue. I expect them to. He hesitated. You've made your point. This wasn't about a point. He looked at me carefully. You're not the same kid who left for basic training. No. We stood there in the entryway, the same place he'd once told me I was useless. You've become formidable, he said. I've become accountable. He gave a short nod. The inspection was straightforward. Minor wear and tear. Nothing dramatic. No broken appliances. No damage. My mom walked through each room slowly like she was memorizing it. You're selling it, she asked. Yes. Why? Because it served its purpose. She studied me. And what was that? Clarity. Jason stayed mostly outside, loading the last of the boxes into a rented truck. He didn't meet my eyes when we crossed paths. By late afternoon, the house was empty. I walked through each room once more. Quiet, neutral. Just walls and floors. No tension in the air. No expectations. Just space. Back at base the following week, I submitted my application packet for the upcoming major board. Performance evaluations were strong. Deployment records solid. Leadership reviews clean. I wasn't chasing validation anymore. I was building something structured. 3 months later, the repayment plan was on schedule. No missed installments. No arguments. The trust balance reflected steady restoration. One evening, I received a text from my mom. Your sister's not feeling well. Doctor bills are piling up. No demand. No accusation. Just information. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I typed back, I hope she recovers quickly. Let me know if she needs help navigating insurance. No offer of money. No transfer. Just support that didn't involve my bank account. The response was simple. Understood. That was new. Not resistance, not guilt. Understanding. The next morning, I stood in formation as the sun came up over the motor pool. Orders were read. Assignments confirmed. Life moved forward. For the first time in years, it felt like I was moving forward with it, not dragging anything behind me. I used to think strength meant enduring whatever your family handed you. Keep the peace. Send the money. Swallow the comments. Smile through Christmas dinner. Turns out real strength is quieter than that. It's reading the fine print. It's asking hard questions. It's sending the certified letter instead of the angry text. It's understanding that love without accountability turns into control. My parents called me useless at Christmas. What they really meant was I stopped fitting the role they were comfortable with. The daughter who served her country but never challenged the house rules. The one who wired money and never asked where it went. This wasn't about revenge for me. It was about boundaries. about refusing to finance disrespect, about recognizing that family drama doesn't get a free pass just because it shares your last name. You can honor your family without surrendering your future. You can serve your country without submitting to emotional manipulation. And you can walk away from toxic patterns without becoming the villain in someone else's story. If stories like this, real family revenge stories, real family drama, real moments where people take their power back, resonate with you, make sure you subscribe. There's a lot more where that came from.